My name's Henry Collins. 68 years old, retired well, almost retired. I still wore clean shirts every morning, still shaved, still said good morning to the neighbor's cat like it mattered. That Tuesday, I walked into my son, Tyler's fancy suburban kitchen, where the air always smelled like some kind of almond milk and disappointment. He was scrolling on his phone. His wife Megan was arranging avocado toast like she worked for a magazine. I stood there, holding my coffee mug, one of those chipped ones from the old factory break room, and said it plain and simple. Tyler, they shut down the plant. After 39 years, we're all out. He didn't even look up. Oh, wow, that's rough, Dad. Then he sighed. But you know, things are tight here too. The mortgage, the kids, Megan's yoga retreat. Megan nodded without looking up. It's not personal, Henry. It's just, we can't keep supporting you. Supporting me. I'd paid for his first car, his college, even the down payment on this house. Supporting me? That one nearly made me choke on my dignity. Tyler leaned back, trying to sound calm but proud. Maybe it's time you figured something out. Maybe move in with Aunt Ruth. She's got that spare room. I looked at him for a moment. My own son, talking to me like a bill collector. Then I just smiled. That kind of slow, tired smile that says, all right, son, you just wrote your own chapter. I put on my coat, the old brown one that smells like machine oil and coffee, and said, well, thank you for breakfast. You've been enlightening. He didn't know that just 2 hours earlier at 6:12 a.m., I'd gotten a call that would have turned his jaw to stone. And in my inside pocket was an envelope that could have bought this entire street. But I wanted to see what kind of man my boy really was before I opened it. That morning, I found out. Tomorrow, he'd find out too. I walked out of Tyler's house with a grocery bag full of my own socks. Imagine that 68 years on this earth, and all I owned at that moment was a dozen socks and a half-empty jar of instant coffee I'd bought myself. The sky had that gray, judgmental color, the kind that makes you feel like even the clouds are gossiping about you. My car, a rusty 2005 Buick, was sitting at the curb like an old dog waiting to be put down. I opened the trunk. It was full of things Tyler didn't want cluttering his modern minimalist home. My fishing rods, my old typewriter, a set of wrenches that probably held that kid's childhood together. As I started the engine, the neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, waved from her porch. She's 92, partially deaf, and convinced I'm secretly a spy. Off to save America again, Henry, she shouted. Something like that, I said. Bring me a souvenir this time, she yelled back. Sure, I muttered. How about your son's respect? I drove off, laughing to myself. Sometimes humor's the only armor left for an old fool with a bruised heart. I stopped at the diner on Maple Street, the one that still had a jukebox and a waitress who called everyone honey. Her name's Doris, and she's been serving coffee since Nixon was in office. She looked me up and down, squinted, and said, You look like a man who just got hit by a polite bus. I told her the short version. Lost the job, lost the house, gained perspective. She poured me an extra strong coffee and said, Perspective doesn't pay rent, but it sure makes you sound wise. We both laughed, and as I stirred in the sugar, I felt the edge of that envelope against my chest, thick, important, alive. Doris caught me smiling and raised a brow. That look right there, Henry, is the look of a man who's up to something. She wasn't wrong, because by the end of the week, my son would be calling me sir again, and this time, not out of respect, but out of sheer panic. That night, I parked my Buick outside an old roadside motel. You know, the kind flickering neon sign, doors that creak like they've seen too much, and a vending machine that proudly sells both aspirin and romance novels. The place was called Dream Rest, which felt like false advertising. The only dream I had there was of the ceiling collapsing. I tossed my bag on the bed, sat down, and finally opened that envelope. Inside was a letter from the attorney handling the estate of my old boss, Mr. Whitmore. Turns out, before he passed, the man left me something for loyalty beyond money. I thought maybe a watch or a gold pen. Nope. $9 million. $9 million. I laughed so loud the guy in the next room knocked on the wall. "Keep it down!" he yelled. "Sorry," I shouted back. "I just became rich!" he yelled again. "Then buy your own wall to yell at!" For a minute, I sat there, stunned. 39 years of fixing machines, eating tuna sandwiches, clocking in early, leaving late, and suddenly, I was the wealthiest man in the motel by approximately $9 million. I didn't feel angry anymore, just amused. Tyler had practically shoved me out like a bag of recyclables, and I had the power to buy the recycling plant. The irony was sweeter than Doris's cherry pie. Still, I didn't rush to tell anyone. I wanted to breathe, think, maybe even have a little fun. So I ordered pizza, the deluxe one, with extra pepperoni, the kind Megan would call heart attack food. And when the delivery guy said, "That'll be $18.50, I tipped him 100 just to watch his soul leave his body for a second. I fell asleep that night smiling, imagining Tyler scrolling through Zillow, thinking of renting my future guest house. Because the next morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do, and let's just say, it involved a new suit, a fancy lawyer, and one very awkward family dinner invitation. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. The motel coffee tasted like burnt tires, but somehow, it went down smoother than any latte Megan ever brewed in her chrome spaceship of a kitchen. I put on my cleanest shirt, shined my shoes with an old napkin, and headed downtown to meet the lawyer, Mr. Hammond, a man so polished he could probably get fingerprints on sunlight. He stood up when I walked in, grinning like a man who'd just delivered good news to the wrong person. "Mr. Collins," he said, shaking my hand. "I trust you've read the letter?" "Read it?" I said. I almost framed it. He chuckled. "Well, congratulations. Mr. Whitmore appreciated loyalty. You're now the sole owner of Whitmore Industrial Holdings." I blinked. "Holdings?" He nodded. "Yes, plus the assets. Approximately $9.2 million in total value." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. I actually checked my ears. Wait, I thought I just got money now. I've got a company too? "Indeed," he said, "and quite a profitable one." I laughed, maybe a little too loud. The secretary outside peeked in. "Sir, are you okay?" "Oh, I'm better than okay," I said. "I just realized I'm the boss of every man who ever told me to retire quietly." Mr. Hammond handed me a folder thicker than my patience at family dinners. "We'll need your signature on a few forms." I signed everything like a man autographing his own comeback tour. As I walked out, I caught my reflection in the glass door. Still the same wrinkles, same tired eyes, but somehow taller. I stopped at a store, bought a new suit, navy blue, clean cut. Made me look like I'd just fired someone important. The salesgirl asked, "Big occasion, sir?" "Just a little family reunion," I said. Then I called Doris from the diner. "Doris," I said, "how do you feel about catering private dinners?" She laughed. "For who?" For the man who used to live in his son's basement, but now owns a better house across the street. Because that's where I planned my grand return, in the house right opposite Tyler's driveway. And oh, it was going to be beautifully awkward. 2 weeks later, the "for sale" sign across from Tyler's house disappeared. The realtor, a cheerful woman named Patty, had no idea she was selling poetic justice. "You're going to love this neighborhood, Mr. Collins," she chirped as she handed me the keys. "Oh, I'm already familiar with the locals," I said, grinning. It wasn't a mansion, just a nice, solid brick house with a porch big enough for a rocking chair and revenge-flavored lemonade. As I unpacked my boxes, I caught sight of Tyler outside, mowing his lawn in those ridiculous designer sneakers. Megan was on the porch, sipping something green and judgmental. I waved. He squinted, then dropped the mower handle like he'd seen a ghost with a mortgage. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Oh, just moved in," I said cheerfully. "Lovely area. Great view." He blinked. "Of my house?" "Exactly," I said. Couldn't ask for better entertainment. The look on his face, somewhere between confusion and indigestion, was worth 9 million alone. Megan's jaw dropped so low, I half expected her smoothie to pour itself in. I spent the afternoon setting up my porch, a rocking chair, a little table, a radio playing Sinatra, and a big sign that said, Home Sweet Paid Off Home. Every few minutes, I'd wave to passersby and say, Yep, new in town. Got lucky with the market and genetics. That night, I called Doris. The dinner's on. Saturday evening. Formal. Family. Only. She chuckled. Oh, Lord, you're stirring the pot again, Henry. Doris, I said. I'm not stirring it. I'm seasoning it with irony. When Saturday rolled around, I had the table set, candles lit, and Doris in the kitchen wearing an apron that said, Retired, but reheated. Tyler and Megan arrived, both overdressed and underprepared. Dad, Tyler said, glancing around the grand dining room, how exactly did you afford this? I leaned back, took a sip of wine, and smiled like a man with perfect timing. Oh, I said softly, that's a funny story. And by dessert time, he was about to choke on every word he'd ever thrown at me. Dinner started innocent enough candlelight, Doris's famous roast, and Megan pretending she wasn't scanning the room for price tags. I could practically hear her brain calculating how much each chair cost. Tyler kept clearing his throat, waiting for me to slip and say something foolish. But I was calm, smiling, cutting my steak, like a man who didn't just lose his job, like a man who owned the company that fired him. So, Dad, he finally said, stabbing his salad a bit too aggressively, this is quite an upgrade from the motel, huh? Oh, it's comfortable enough, I said. The mortgage is friendly, mostly because there isn't one. Megan's fork froze mid-air. You bought it? Like, bought? Bought? All cash, I said. Funny thing, turns out loyalty does pay. Just takes 4 decades and one dead boss. Tyler blinked. You mean Whitmore? The factory guy? The very one. Left me the business. And about 9 million reasons to buy a house next to my favorite lawnmower. Doris nearly dropped a serving spoon, trying not to laugh. I shot her a look that said, Not yet. Let him marinate. Tyler leaned back, pale as mashed potatoes. Dad, I didn't know. Of course you didn't, I said lightly. You were busy. I wouldn't want to disturb your oat milk priorities. Megan tried to smile. Well, that's wonderful news. We're so happy for you. Are you? I said, grinning, because happiness looks a lot like panic from where I'm sitting. There was an awkward silence, the kind that makes even the furniture sweat. Doris saved the moment by setting down dessert, pecan pie with extra whipped cream. Sweetness always helps the bitter go down easier, she said with a wink. I looked at my son, this proud, nervous man who thought success was measured in square footage and hashtags, and I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was amused, because he still didn't know what I planned next. And let's just say when I offered him a job the next morning, he was going to wish he'd treated the old man a little better. The next morning, I showed up at Tyler's house before breakfast wearing my new Navy suit and carrying a briefcase. You'd think I was there to sell him insurance, or maybe repossess his pride. He opened the door, half asleep, hair sticking up like bad karma. Dad, it's 7:30. Good morning, sunshine, I said cheerfully. Thought we could chat before you head to wherever people go when they don't own businesses. He groaned. Dad, please, not now. Oh, relax, I said, walking in like I still paid the bills. You'll like this. I'm offering you a position. That woke him up faster than caffeine. A position? Yes, I said, setting my briefcase on the counter. At Whitmore Industrial Holdings. I'm the new owner, and I need someone to handle community outreach. He frowned. Outreach? What does that even mean? Well, I said, you'd mostly be talking to people we've ignored for decades. Like, say, retired employees. Or fathers who were kicked out after losing their jobs. He blinked. You're joking. Tyler, I said. At my age, the only joke I tolerate is the one in my mirror. Megan appeared in her robe, holding a green smoothie that looked like blended envy. This sounds awkward, she said, giving me that tight smile rich people use when they smell humility. Oh, don't worry, I said. It's a paid position. Very fair, just under 6 figures. If you count the decimals. Tyler nearly choked. Dad! What? I said. You told me to figure something out. I figured out a company. You told me to move out. I moved across the street. You told me to find purpose. Well, my purpose today is offering you the same mercy you didn't show me employment. He stared at me, red in the face. I smiled sweetly. You can start Monday. Dress code, respect, and punctuality. Megan whispered. Henry, that's cruel. No, Megan, I said. Cruel was eviction before breakfast. And as I left their house, I swear the neighbor's dog winked at me. Because sometimes the universe doesn't need thunder for justice, just good timing and a cup of irony. But Tyler's lesson wasn't done yet. Because by the end of that first workday, my son would discover who his new supervisor was. Monday morning rolled in like a sitcom. Tyler showed up at Whitmore Industrial Holdings wearing a suit that screamed, "Please take me seriously, Dad!" He'd even gelled his hair into a helmet of ambition. I was in my office early, feet on the desk, reading the paper like the CEO of Karma Incorporated. He peeked through the door, all awkward smiles. "Morning, sir." I looked up, pretending to be surprised. "Ah, Mr. Collins, Jr., welcome aboard. Did HR get you your badge?" "Yeah," he said, holding it up. "Still feels weird seeing community outreach associate." "Titles are flexible," I said. "Performance isn't." I handed him a folder thick enough to serve as a pillow. "Your first task, visit every retired employee we ever let go without a proper thank you. Apologize. Take them a fruit basket. Tell them the company's under new management. And I mean personally, not over email." He blinked. "You want me to deliver baskets?" "Yes," I said, with a smile. "Think of it as corporate yoga, good for your posture and your soul." He tried to laugh. It came out like a dying vacuum cleaner. "Right. Sure. Anything else?" "Oh, yes," I added. "You'll report directly to Miss Green, our new director of operations." He turned pale. "Wait, Linda Green? As in my high school ex-girlfriend Linda Green?" "The very same," I said, sipping my coffee. "Brilliant woman. Runs the place like a symphony." "Says you were memorable." He rubbed his forehead. "Dad, this feels personal." "It's business, son." The personal part was when you kicked me out over oatmeal. By noon, he'd already dropped 2 fruit baskets, been scolded by Linda twice, and spilled orange juice on his tie. I watched from my window, laughing so hard the secretary thought I was choking. When he finally stumbled back into my office, sweaty and defeated, I said, "So, how's your first day treating you?" He sighed. "I didn't realize this job came with a moral compass." "Consider it part of the benefits package," I said. But the real punchline came later that week when the board invited us both to a dinner, and Tyler found out exactly whose name was now on the building. The board dinner was held at the fanciest restaurant in town, the kind of place where the menus don't have prices and the waiters look like they're trained by the Secret Service. Tyler had polished himself to a shine, clearly hoping to reclaim some dignity. I'd invited him as my guest of honor, which in my dictionary means potential lesson recipient. When we arrived, the maitre d' greeted us with a bow. "Mr. Collins," he said. "Your usual table?" Tyler raised an eyebrow. "Usual?" "Oh yes," I said casually. "They keep my chair warm here. Literally, it's heated." The board members were already seated, polite smiles, expensive watches, zero sense of humor. The chairman, a tall man named Wallace, stood up and said, "Gentlemen, we'd like to toast to the new leadership of Whitmore Industrial Holdings." Everyone clinked glasses, and I caught Tyler looking around, confused. "Wait," he whispered. "Why's everyone looking at you like that?" I smiled, slow and steady. "Because, son, when I said I inherited the company, I didn't mean a desk. I meant the whole thing." He blinked. You own all of it?" "Every nut, bolt, and coffee machine," I said. "Even the one that used to break every Monday morning, remember that?" Tyler swallowed hard. "Dad, that means—" "Yes," I said. "It means you technically work for me and under your ex-girlfriend. You've managed to climb down 2 ladders at once. Impressive." The board laughed politely. Not at him, but near him, the worst kind of laughter. I raised my glass. To family. Proof that DNA isn't always the best hiring policy. Tyler's ears turned red. Megan texted him under the table. I could see her name flash. Is this really happening? I leaned in and whispered. Yes, sweetheart. It really is. Dessert arrived, a ridiculous tower of chocolate and ego. Tyler tried to speak but accidentally knocked over his water. The whole table went silent. I patted his shoulder. Careful, son! That's imported humility you're spilling. He stared at me, no longer angry, just quiet. And for the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't pride or pity. It was understanding. But understanding takes time, and humility takes practice. And I had one more surprise waiting at home that would finish the lesson once and for all. Later that night, I sat on my porch with a cup of decaf and the sweet smell of poetic justice floating through the air. Across the street, Tyler's house glowed in awkward silence. No TV, no laughter, just two silhouettes pacing behind the blinds like a pair of nervous raccoons. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then I remembered him saying, "You'll need to find somewhere else by tonight." And suddenly, my coffee tasted better. Around 9, I heard a car door slam. Tyler was walking across the street in his slippers, hands stuffed in his pockets. He looked like a kid coming home from detention. "Dad," he said, quietly, "can we talk?" "Of course," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Pull up a rocking chair. Careful, though they're not built for fragile egos," he sighed. "I deserved that." We sat in silence for a bit, listening to the crickets, or maybe the sound of his pride deflating. "I messed up," he finally said. "You didn't deserve how I treated you. I thought you were done, like your time had passed." I looked at him. "Tyler, people don't expire like milk. We just change flavor." He laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from him in months. "I thought success meant money. But after tonight, I think it means not being the joke at your dad's company dinner." I smirked. "That's one definition, yeah." Then I stood and put a hand on his shoulder. "Son, you don't owe me an apology. You owe yourself a restart. You wanted me to figure something out, remember? Well, now it's your turn. Figure out how to be happy without stepping on people who love you." He nodded slowly. "You're right. And thank you for not slamming the door in my face." "Please," I said, waving a hand. "You're my kid. I'd only do that after dessert." He smiled, and for a second he looked like the boy who used to hand me wrenches in the garage, covered in grease and dreams. Then I said, "Now go home before Megan starts thinking you're applying for adoption." He laughed again, a real, human laugh this time, and crossed the street, and I realized maybe I hadn't lost a son after all. Maybe I'd just given him a reboot. But the story wasn't finished yet. Because the next morning, the entire town found out who'd bought the factory, and things got deliciously noisy. The next morning, I woke up to chaos, the good kind. The phone was ringing, my porch light was blinking, and Mrs. Jenkins from next door was shouting, "Henry, you're on the news!" I opened the door in my robe, and she was standing there with curlers in her hair and a newspaper in her hand. "Local man inherits factory, buys house across from ungrateful son," she read aloud. "Oh, Henry, you're practically a soap opera." I nearly spit out my coffee. "Well," I said, "at least they didn't call me elderly millionaire menace." By noon, the story had spread faster than Megan's gossip at brunch. Cars slowed down in front of my house. Kids pointed. Someone even took a selfie in front of my mailbox. Doris called from the diner, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "Henry, I had a full line out the door before lunch. They all want your millionaire's meatloaf special." "Save me a slice," I said. Fame makes a man hungry. But not everyone found it funny. Around 1 o'clock, Tyler stormed over, newspaper in hand. "Dad, did you have to talk to the press?" I looked up from my rocking chair. "I didn't. Mrs. Jenkins did. Apparently, your father's rise from basement to billionaire pairs well with her banana bread recipe," he groaned. "Now everyone at church is calling me the prodigal son-in-law." "Be thankful," I said. "At least they think you came back." Megan appeared behind him, trying to smile. "Henry, maybe we could use this attention. Do something together for the community?" "Funny," I said. That's exactly what my community outreach associate should say. Tyler winced. Dad, please. I softened. All right, son. You want redemption? Then let's give these people something better than gossip. He frowned. Like what? Like rebuilding the factory. Rehiring the men and women we left behind. He blinked. You'd do that? Not for you, I said. With you. It was the first time we'd been on the same side of a sentence in years. And when he nodded. Really nodded, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen since he was 10. Gratitude. Of course, 5 minutes later, Mrs. Jenkins shouted from her porch, Henry! Hollywood's calling next! Tell them to wait, I yelled back. We've got a family business to fix first. But fixing it? Oh, that came with its own surprises. Rebuilding the factory wasn't as simple as dusting off old machines and calling it a day. It was like trying to wake up a sleeping giant that had been napping since dial-up internet. The first morning back, I walked through those doors. The same creaky, oil-stained doors I'd opened every day for 39 years. Only this time, I wasn't clocking in. I was signing paychecks. Tyler followed behind me, holding a clipboard like it was a shield. Wow, he whispered. It smells exactly like it did when I was a kid. Yep, I said. A mix of hard work, old coffee, and mild regret. We met the team mostly familiar faces, though older, slower, a few with more hair in their ears than on their heads. When they saw me, the room lit up. Joe, the foreman, gave me a bear hug that nearly cracked my ribs. Henry, we thought you were done for. Oh, I'm done pretending to be done, I said. Now let's build something worth sweating for. Tyler stood awkwardly, clearly unsure how to fit into this world of grease and grit. At one point, he tried to shake hands with a guy who still had oil on his gloves. Welcome aboard, Tyler said, pulling his hand back like he'd just touched lava. The men laughed. Even Tyler did a nervous, self-conscious kind of laugh. But it was a start. At lunch, I caught him sitting with Joe and the others, eating from a paper plate like one of the guys. No phones, no airs, just a young man trying to belong. Watching that, I felt something loosen inside my chest, a knot that had been there for years. Later, as we were locking up, Tyler said quietly, Dad, I didn't realize how much this place meant to people. It's not the machines, I said. It's the stories inside the walls. Every dent, every laugh, that's what you threw away when you thought I was useless. He looked at me, eyes a little wet. I was wrong, I smiled. I know. That's why I hired you. Not for what you are, but for who you might still become. Then, because I can't stay sentimental for long, I added, Now go wash your hands before you ruin your fancy car's steering wheel. That oil's got more miles on it than your marriage. He groaned, laughed, and drove off, windows down. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I'd lost a son. I felt like I'd gained a partner. But life loves a twist. And that night, a letter arrived in my mailbox, one that would change everything again. That evening, the mailbox rattled like it had a secret. Inside was a thick white envelope with no return address, just my name written in neat, careful handwriting. I knew that script. It was Mr. Whitmore's. For a moment, I stood frozen on the porch. The man had been gone for months, but somehow he was still finding ways to surprise me. I sat down in my rocking chair, opened it gently, and pulled out a letter that smelled faintly of pipe, tobacco, and wisdom. Henry, it began, if you're reading this, it means I've checked out before you did finally won a race against that stubborn heart of yours. I left you the business because you worked like an owner your whole life, even when you weren't one. But I left you something else too, a reminder. I unfolded the second page. Inside was a check not for millions this time, but for $10,000 with a note that said, Use this for laughter. Don't build. Don't save. Just laugh. I chuckled so loud that Mrs. Jenkins shouted from her porch, You win the lottery again, Henry? Better, I said. A ghost just told me to throw a party. So I did. The next weekend I threw a factory reunion. Every old worker, every retiree, even the grumpy night guard who used to nap behind the vending machine, they all showed up. Doris catered, of course. She made her famous meatloaf mountain and a cake shaped like a wrench. Tyler helped set up tables, running around like a teenager again. At one point, he climbed on a chair and shouted, "Three cheers for the man who built all this!" The crowd roared, glasses raised, and I swear I saw old Whitmore smiling from somewhere above the fluorescent lights. Later, as the band played and the smell of barbecue filled the air, Tyler sat beside me. "Dad," he said quietly, "I think this is what that check was for. Not money, not status, just this." I nodded. "Yep, some people chase happiness their whole life. Turns out, it's usually grilling 3 feet away." He laughed, then added, "You know, I think I finally get it. Success isn't about building something new. It's about not forgetting who built it with you." I smiled. "Careful, son. Keep talking like that, and you'll start sounding like me." He grinned. "That's the goal." The night ended with fireworks, courtesy of Joe, who somehow accidentally ordered professional ones. One went sideways and nearly took out the banner, and everyone screamed and laughed until tears ran down their cheeks. And just like that, the factory wasn't just rebuilt. It was reborn louder, warmer, realer than ever. But the biggest surprise of the night came when I got home. On my porch sat a box with a note that simply said, "From your old crew. Open when you're alone." It was close to midnight when I finally got home. The crickets were loud, the porch light hummed, and that mysterious box waited on my steps like a loyal dog. On top sat a note written in smudged pen, "For the man who never stopped showing up." I brought it inside, set it on the kitchen table, and opened it carefully. Inside were dozens of small, mismatched objects, a wrench with my initials carved on it, a photo of me and the crew from the 80 seconds, an old thermos that still smelled faintly of burnt coffee, and a folded piece of cloth. The original factory flag we'd raised the day Whitmore Industries first opened. On the bottom, there was a framed photo of me covered in grease, laughing, holding a broken part in one hand and a sandwich in the other. Someone had written underneath, "Our real boss," before it was official. I sat there, staring at it, and for the first time in a long while, my eyes burned a little. Not from age, from pride. All those years, I thought nobody noticed, that I was just another man punching the clock. Turns out, every late night, every fixed machine, every stupid joke about broken coffee makers, it meant something. I poured myself a small glass of bourbon and raised it to the empty room. "Well, Whitmore," I muttered, "you old rascal. Looks like we did all right after all." Just then, someone knocked. It was Tyler, still in his work clothes, eyes tired but kind. "Dad," he said softly, "I just wanted to say goodnight and thank you for everything." "Son," I said smiling, "don't thank me. You're the one who showed up today. That's all I ever wanted." He grinned. "You're impossible, you know that?" "Genetically proven," I said. We stood there in the doorway, both too stubborn to say what we really felt. Then Tyler said, "Mom would have been proud of you." And that hit me right in the chest, the kind of quiet blow only love can land. I nodded. She'd have been prouder if I'd learned to cook something besides microwave lasagna. He laughed, hugged me, really hugged me, and left. As the door clicked shut, I looked at the photo one more time and whispered, "Maybe losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me." And that's when I knew the next morning wouldn't be about revenge or rebuilding anymore. It would be about passing something on. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. The world was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums like gratitude. I made myself a cup of coffee in that old, dented thermos from the box, the one that had been through more Mondays than I could count. It still leaked a little, but so do I these days. I stepped out onto the porch, watched the light spill over the factory roof in the distance, and thought about everything that had happened. A son who forgot, a father who forgave, a ghost of a boss who still taught lessons from the grave, and a life that somehow turned itself inside out just to remind me what mattered. Tyler came jogging across the street, waving. "Morning, old man. Morning, young fool," I said. He handed me a folded paper. "It's the first paycheck I've ever earned from you. I want you to keep it. I opened it. It wasn't much, but it was honest, and there was something scribbled at the bottom. For teaching me the right kind of work. I patted his shoulder. You're getting there, son. Keep at it, and you'll be broke and happy, just like your old man. He laughed, then said, You're not just my boss now, Dad. You're my friend. I grinned. Don't push it, kid. Friends don't fire each other for being late. We stood there, side by side, watching the town wake up. The smell of coffee, the sound of distant laughter, and the hum of machines starting up again. It all blended into something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Turns out, revenge fades, pride softens, and money, well, money just makes for a fun story. But respect? That's the real inheritance. And as the sun climbed higher, I whispered to myself, $9 million didn't make me rich. Losing everything did. Because sometimes, life takes everything away just to hand you back what really counts. Write in the comments how old you are and where you're watching from.